The UFC pay-per-view lineup for the rest of 2024 is looking pretty packed. We have UFC 305 this coming weekend, DDP versus Izzy for the middleweight title. The next pay-per-view after that is UFC 306, which was rebranded to Riyadh Season Noche UFC, but that is for the bantamweight title. Sean O'Malley versus Merab Dvalishvili, also with Alexa Grasso, Valentina Shevchenko as the co-main event. UFC 308 just got announced. Ilia Topuria versus Max Holloway. And that's going to be in Abu Dhabi. That's going to be taking the main event slot because Islam is out with a hand injury, will most likely be out until 2025. UFC 309 is rumored and basically all but announced as being John Jones versus Stipe Miocic for the UFC fake undisputed heavyweight title. And then UFC 310 in December in Las Vegas is rumored to be the rebooked date for Conor McGregor versus Michael Chandler. There is one pay-per-view for the rest of 2024 that does not have any rumors floating around about it, all right? You see we have 305, 306, 308, 309, 310, but we don't have anything for UFC 307. Now we're going to take a look at that because as you can see, there is no announced or even rumored main event for Salt Lake City UFC 307 on October 5th. No rumors, no anything. There have been some fights announced for the card, but nothing that is even close to main event of a pay-per-view worthy. So stick around to hear my thoughts on what's going to be the UFC 307 main event in October. I'm Wyatt, and this is Fight Society. Guys, before we get into the video, make sure to like, subscribe, all that YouTube stuff. It really helps me out a lot. As you can see right here, UFC 307 does not have a main event announced yet. And we have a bunch of main events that are announced or rumored from a serious source that has me thinking that this is going to be our pay-per-view main event lineup for the rest of the year. 305 is going to be Izzy and DDP. That's this coming weekend, August 17th. September 14th, you have Noche UFC, which was UFC 306, which has been rebranded. O'Malley versus Dvalishvili. Abu Dhabi's getting Ilia versus Max Holloway. Crazy fight, crazy card too. Madison Square Garden is getting the fake heavyweight belt, and then Conor versus Chandler is looking to be in Vegas at UFC 310 in December. Now, 307, Salt Lake City, most recently was the host to UFC 291, where Justin Gaethje head kicked Dustin Poirier. Before that, there was also I believe it was UFC 278. I think it was 278. Leon Edwards head kicks Kamaru Usman. Legendary fight, legendary moment in MMA history of Leon, headshot dead, all of that. So we take a look at the card as it is right now. This is from SureDog.com. Obviously, Jose Aldo and Mario Bautista is not the main event. That's just the highest level fight on the card currently. So that's what SureDog has as the main event. You have Jose Aldo going up against Mario Bautista. This is a mid-level or mid-rankings level matchup. For the bantamweight division, you have like 8 versus 12, something like that. You also have Kayla Harrison signed to be fighting Ketlen Vieira. Honestly, pretty surprised that Kayla Harrison isn't just going straight to a title shot, but that tells me that Raquel Pennington, Juliana Pena is going to happen. I think that could end up on this card, but I don't think they're going to main event that. Ketlen Vieira versus Kayla Harrison. Down from there, you also have confirmed Movsar Evloev versus Aljamain Sterling. Amazing fight at 145 pounds between two high-level grapplers. You got wrestling and jiu-jitsu in Aljamain Sterling going up against Sambo in Evloev. And then you also have banger middleweight fight on the card, Chris Curtis and Kevin Holland. You also have Carla Esparza's retirement fight going up against Tisha Pennington, formerly Tisha Torres. You also have Marina Rodriguez going up against Yasmin Lucindo. Yasmin Lucindo, young, I think like 21, 22 years old, in the rankings at strawweight, looking to climb her way up. And then you have Cesar Almeida, who fought Alex Pereira in kickboxing, going up against Ihor Potieria. So that's what's announced for the card right now. But what I really want to talk about is what are the potential main events. Credit to Full Violence. They posted this here of potential UFC 307 main event fights. 1 being Tom Aspinall versus Alex Pereira for the interim heavyweight title. 2 being Arman Tsarukyan versus Charles Oliveira rematch from UFC 300 for the interim lightweight title because Islam Makhachev will be out until 2025 getting surgery on his hand. Number 3, Belal Muhammad versus Shavkat Rakhmonov or Kamaru Usman. Or 4, Alexandre Pantoja versus Kai Asakura. Before we get into those fights, I do want to say, based on how the card is currently structured, Kayla Harrison versus Ketlen Vieira, 135 pounds, going to be on the main card. This is a contingency fight for what's going to be the co-main event, maybe even the main event. Salt Lake City might get stuck with this as a main event. I doubt it though. But Harrison versus Vieira is a contingency fight for Juliana Pena versus Raquel Pennington. They're going to be on this card. They're doing this so that they can have Kayla Harrison win if everything goes according to plan. And she would be on the same timetable as whoever wins the Pena and Pennington fight. And that gives Kayla Harrison her title shot, which the UFC desperately wants to give her to resurrect this dead 135-pound division that has been on life support since Amanda Nunes retired. Mayra Bueno Silva versus Raquel Pennington was a disgrace to the UFC in terms of level of title fight, in my opinion. Pena versus Pennington will be on this card. If Kayla Harrison versus Vieira is on this card, they're going to put it on the same card. We go back and look at the potential main events. Aspinall versus Pereira. This is not going to happen. Aspinall, in my opinion, this is just in my opinion, this fight's not going to happen right now. Pereira, I believe, will be held out until January 2025. January or February. He fought November, March, June. They don't want Pereira. They've learned their lesson, okay? Gilbert Burns, like 3 fights in 4 months, looked terrible against Belal and got injured. Israel Adesanya, incredibly active title run. So active, looks terrible against Sean Strickland. I think they're managing Alex Pereira in a way where they can keep him as the face of the company for at least a couple more years. So Alex Pereira is going to be out until 2025, in my opinion. Maybe they have him do December in Vegas if Conor versus Chandler does not materialize. But Tom Aspinall, I believe, is going to be the backup fighter, weigh in as a backup for Jones versus Stipe at UFC 309 at Madison Square Garden. And then Alex Pereira will be held out until December at the very earliest. I said in a previous video that it's certainly possible that they do make Aspinall Pereira, because they booked Magomed Ankalaev against Alexander Rakic for Abu Dhabi in October. I think they want to give Pereira some time off and then let the division and heavyweight, actually, light heavyweight and heavyweight, kind of sort themselves out before they decide what they're going to do with Pereira. He's been incredibly active. He's made a ton of money. Obviously, there's the recent allegations that came out against him, which I'm fairly certain are going to blow over. And that might be what the UFC is trying to do. Hold him out until the end of the year, early next year. Let this blow over. Let him get some recovery time. Figure out who they want him to fight. It just seems like a good time for Pereira to take 5-6 months off, because he fought on June 29th. That's basically July, and we're only a week or 2 into August. So I think they're just holding Alex out. He came back very quickly after getting KO'd by Izzy, and he's been active ever since. So I don't think that fight's going to happen. Tsarukyan versus Oliveira 2 is a possibility, but Arman Tsarukyan is suspended. If he does the anti-bullying campaign, he's suspended until like October 13th, so he could fight at Abu Dhabi. But if not, he's suspended until 2025. If you guys remember, he punched a fan during his walkout at UFC 300. He was suspended for 9 months, but it could be shortened to 6 months if he does a video about anti-bullying. I think they're just going to hold Arman out until 2025 to fight Islam. There's really no reason to do Charles Oliveira versus Arman Tsarukyan 2. I think they just hold Arman out until early 2025 to fight Islam. And moving down from there, Belal just won the welterweight belt at UFC 304 on July 27th. So for him to turn around and fight October 5th, very quick turnaround. I could see it happening, but Rakhmonov says he's not ready until the end of the year. Usman has 3 straight losses, 2 of them being at welterweight, 1 of them being at middleweight against Khamzat Chimaev. He doesn't deserve a title shot. It's going to be Shavkat, in my opinion. I think Usman's going to fight someone like Jack Della Maddalena, and then I think they're going to do Leon against like Ian Gary. This is all things that could happen December, you know, maybe end of the year for UFC 310. If Conor and Chandler doesn't come together, you do Pereira versus somebody for the main event, Belal versus Shavkat as the co-main, Usman versus Jack Della Maddalena, and or Leon versus Ian Gary on that card. Stacked. That'll be a stacked card to end the year, but I don't think Usman's getting a title shot next. The other possibility down here, which actually seems incredibly likely and could co-main, probably would main event, but could co-main to Juliana Pena and Raquel Pennington, is Alexandre Pantoja versus Kai Asakura. I did think that Tatsuro Taira was going to be getting the title fight against Pantoja. Pantoja was saying it's going to be against someone you guys don't expect, which had me kind of wondering if it was going to be Kai Asakura. Now it's basically all but confirmed that it's going to be Kai Asakura fighting for the flyweight belt in his UFC debut coming over from Ryzen. For those of you that don't know, Kai Asakura was the bantamweight champion, 135 pounds, in Ryzen, which is a promotion over in Japan, which is very large in the Japanese market. They sell out stadiums. Kai Asakura can sell tickets in Japan. Now, Tatsuro Taira is going to be taking on Brandon Royval on October 12th at the Apex. That's not going to happen for over 2 months. Alexandre Pantoja needs an opponent. Makhayev's not with the UFC anymore. If those of you that remember, Muhammad Makhayev was released from the UFC following his win over Manel Kape at UFC 304. Now, we also have the news of this right here. Kai Asakura says UFC debut should be announced soon. Very, very popular fighter. He's popular on social media, YouTube, all that. Huge fan base in Japan. Coming over as a champion from a major promotion. He's not coming from Cage Warriors. He's not coming from LFA. He's coming from Ryzen. He's coming from a major A-level promotion, international level promotion that is known and respected. It makes sense that he would get a UFC title fight in his debut. So that tells me that the UFC 307 card in Salt Lake City is going to be Kai Asakura versus Alexandre Pantoja for the UFC flyweight belt, Raquel Pennington versus Juliana Pena for the 135-pound women's belt. Not sure which one is the main or the co-main. I assume they do Pantoja and Asakura as the main event there. Kayla Harrison versus Ketlen Vieira, contingency fight for the women's title fight that would be on the card. You also have Jose Aldo adding some name value to the card along with Chris Curtis and Kevin Holland. So I think that even though it's going to be a weak main event, it's going to be a weak main event for sure. Whether it's Asakura and Pantoja, whether it's Pennington and Pena, it's going to be an okay card with 2 title fights, in my opinion, from up at the top. But then the rest of the card is actually going to be really stacked, and I'm excited for it, such as Aldo Bautista, Kayla Harrison versus Ketlen Vieira, Movsar and Aljamain Sterling, Chris Curtis, Kevin Holland, Carla Esparza, Tisha Pennington, my apologies. It's going to be a good card. It's just that it's not going to have crazy superstar name value in the main event, in the co-main event. These title fights they might be banger fights, but as far as name value and hype, they're going to be relatively weak, and then they'll pad the card with some good undercard fights. Anyways, guys, that's what I think about UFC 307, the only UFC pay-per-view through the rest of 2024 that does not even rumored to have a main event yet. So let me know what you guys think should be the main event of UFC 307, especially when you have all of these possible unbooked fights that could be made for the event. Let me know in the comments what you think is most possible and reasonable and doable. And then also let me know what the dream fight is for you in Salt Lake City at UFC 307. Let me know your comments down below. Like, subscribe. Thank you. Hey guys, thank you for watching this video. Make sure to like, subscribe, all that YouTube stuff. It really helps me out a lot. If you're interested in supporting the channel further, then become a channel member today for access to members only live streams, vlogs, and some other members perks. So click the link in the description down below or the join button on our channel homepage to become a member today. If you're interested in some non-MMA content from me, go check out my personal channel, Wyatt's World, and go check out my weekly comedy podcast, What's Up Bro, with Wyatt and Bo. Both of those are linked in the description down below. Go watch this suggested video, and we'll see you next time.